Okay, guys, now we are going to learn how to do a couple of things using loops in Thunkable. Now, for this activity, I am going to add a canvas. So I'm going to use kind of like a little animation where you guys can see the for loops and the while loops. Now, the first, after you have opened the shared Thunkable file, you're gonna look at the design. The first thing you got to do is the design. I have added a canvas. This canvas can be found on the left user interface, and then I added a button that is going to be called square. Those are the only two things that I need. Now, make sure that you have your canvas and your button on the bottom. And if you display the canvas, you're going to see a stage one, a sprite, and a sprite one. A sprite test, and of this sprite test, you have sprite one. So Thunkable will divide all the canvas into stages and objects of type sprite. These sprites can help us create wonderful and animated games. For now, we're just going to create an animation and see how this sprite moves in our canvas. Okay, so for this, we need to program our sprite. Every time that I create a game or the first image or the first stage of a game, I need to know where my object or where my little character is going to be. So the first thing I should do is initialize two variables. These two variables are going to be the x position of the sprite and the y position of the sprite. Remember that these are variables that I'm going to initialize on 0 just because I need to declare them and initialize them to a number. Then what I'm going to do is that when canvas 1 loads, and I can find that on canvas if I click on canvas 1, when canvas 1 loads, okay, I have all my canvas and blocks over here. I click on events when canvas 1 loads. Then I'm going to set the sprite X to 100 and sprite Y to 100. For now, I haven't done anything to the character. I just created, like I added a number to those two variables, the sprite X and sprite Y, which in the future is going to be where the character is going to be. Now, when I press square, when I click the button, and this is the condition, when I press the button is when the loop is going to happen. So I went to the control palette and got the one that's called repeat while. This is just a while loop, okay? This is very simple. It's just a while loop, and the while loop can have while or until, repeat until, or repeat while. So I'm going to use the repeat while, and I added a true. This true means that this is going to be an infinite loop. While, remember that this is the condition, while a variable meets certain expectations, or while the sprite gets to the edge. I mean, there are many ways to create the condition. Remember what we talked about the condition. So while true means that it's going to happen forever. Now, while true, I'm going to set the sprite X, so I'm going to modify the position of the sprite X to sprite X, or the variable sprite X plus 1. So since this is going to be an iteration, an infinite iteration, I am moving sprite X, only the X position of the sprite 1. Then I'm moving the sprite, as you can see, this one goes from the motion palette. You can move, you can set, there are a bunch of things that you can do. Move the sprite to X, and it's my new X. Y is my Y. So I am modifying the X, and the Y hasn't been modified, okay? So in this case, when I click on play, what I'm going to see, and I press the button, I see my sprite right over here. This is 100 by 100, so he's located at this position. When I press square, he's going to go and start adding 1 to the X. You see? And he will continue infinitely, okay? He never stops. The character never stops, okay? Now, what if I add also a 1 to the Y? So I'm going to duplicate this code, and I'm going to say that Y is also Y plus 1. Now, in this case, I can update my screen to X and Y, which are the variables, and now the character is going to move in X and Y position. So let's look at the preview. click on the button, and now the character is moving X and Y, as you can see. Okay? So there are so many things that you can do just using loops. Okay? Now you can repeat this for a certain amount of time. Instead of using a while loop, I'm going to use another type of loop. Maybe repeat a certain amount of times. So repeat, let's say it's going to repeat 10 times. And it's only going to do it for this amount of time. So remember that we're talking about pixels. This position of the sprite is it's a position of a pixel on the canvas. So when I click on design and press preview, and I click on square, it's only going to move 10. See? It was hardly, you hardly even watched it. So in order to see it, let's see if we can change it to 100. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to click on square. Oops. Okay, let's click on square, and we'll see that the character will move 100 in X and Y. So it's 100 added to the initial position. So we can do all sorts of things. I want you to explore the palettes, explore all the options that you have in the canvas with the sprites. If you can add other sprites, or even if when you press the button, you can create a different figure or a different shape based on these two things. Remember that you need the X position and the Y position of the variable. Good luck.